Hello, Jim here. I've been selling options for a number of years and it's worked out quite well for me. One of the keys to my success is what I call easy money trades. And what is an easy money trade? It's simply a trade that you can do again and again. It's very repeatable, it's easy to set up, and it's fairly profitable. Probably not the most profitable trade out there, but profitable enough that it makes it worth it. It's a trade that you can be successful, especially if you're going through a rough time and you need a success. It's a great way to actually get that success and make the trade. Now, I like to do this trade on IWM, the Russell 2000 ETF. I've been trading it for a number of years and it's worked out really well. So today I want to talk about that trade, how it's worked for me, and how I'm looking at potentially changing it going forward. So stay tuned. I think you're going to really enjoy what I have for you. Okay, let's go ahead and jump right in. So IWM is the iShares Russell 2000. So it's based on a lot more companies. It's not as top heavy as a lot of the other indexes like SPY and NASDAQ. And because of that, I think, at least for me, it's been easier to trade. It doesn't move as much. It stays in a smaller range compared to a lot of the other indexes. You can see here holdings. It consists of lots and lots of different types of companies. So it's not just overwhelmingly technology like SPY and NASDAQ. It's got industrials, healthcare, financials, consumer cyclical, energy. And you can see it doesn't have any huge amount of any particular company. It does have nearly 2% of super macro computers, but that's it. MicroStrategy is 0.89. Then it drops in like 0.45%. So it's not overwhelmingly like one area or one sector like so many other indexes. And because of that, it tends to move in a smaller range. I find it easier to trade on compared to SPY or the NASDAQ. Like I said before, I've been able to do quite a few trades, both vertical put credit spreads and iron condors. For the iron condors, I've done like a 10 delta, so it's a pretty wide range that where it can move. And for those, it's never even expired close to the money. Every iron condor, literally, I've been able to let it expire. Now, the vertical put credit spreads, I have had to manage a little bit. You can see it dropped some last year, the beginning of this year, but it dropped over here at the end of last year. And I did have to manage some. I did have to roll down maybe twice, but it wasn't a big deal. It was fairly easy. I believe I just rolled it out to the next month and lowered it by another, I think it was originally like 180 and I rolled it down to 170, got in the money a little bit, and then it popped back up, as you can see here. Those particular positions expired outside the money. I currently have several positions. I have, I think, one or two vertical put credit spreads, and I do have an iron condor, but they all look like they're going to expire. I did close one, I think, last month. So I've done a lot of trades with this, and it's worked out quite well. We can also look at it over here. If we look at it on bar charts, and we can see using the Bollinger Band, you got to understand this is 190 here. This is 210. I've been able to do iron condors, up in this range and down here. So I've always had a good range for writing the iron condors and the vertical put credit spreads. So like I said before, this was the only area that I had to actively roll it. This was October, November of 23, but then it popped back up and it's moved around some, but it's worked out really well for making trades. So part of the reason I'm bringing this up now is I've listened to several other pretty experienced YouTube traders, SMB Capital, also Tasty, and they talk about how they've had to work with certain traders to learn to take a little bit more risk. So as I've shared in a lot of previous videos, I've gone from 1 contract to 2 contract. And if it's a smaller company, I'll do 4 or 5. So I'm wondering, I might need to take more risk, especially with these trades. So I'm looking at potentially doing maybe as many as 4 or 5 trades, or not trades, but contracts in my particular trades. And looking at this trade as my money trade. And it's worked out that way in the past, but taking a bit more risk and trying to make even more with it. So I'd be curious to hear what you guys think. Please leave a comment below. I am going to share here in a minute how I set up these trades. And I'll show you what I mean if I up the number of contracts from maybe 2 to 4, not taking a huge jump. I noticed a lot of the other YouTubers will do. I literally watched the video the other day, and I believe this individual did something like 37 contracts on one particular trade. I don't like to do that many contracts, but I do know if you're day trading, like doing 0 DTE, or you're doing, maybe 1 DTE, or doing it at the end of the week, a lot of the people who are doing those kinds of trades are doing 10 contracts at times. So I'm just playing with the idea, well, maybe I do need to take a bit more risk, especially in a trade that I think is very safe, very repeatable, very consistent. Doesn't, the chance of it being assigned other than a black swan event is fairly rare. And I believe that's how it is with IWM. So again, if, leave me, share your thoughts, add a comment below, and, I'm curious to what you guys think, or how you actually trade IWM or SPY or even QQQ. So I'm next going to talk about how I set up my trades for making trades on IWM. But before I do jump into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about my memberships. I've got 3 primary membership. I have what's called the Investors Club, and I do that as $10 a month. I want people to learn how to sell options, how it's a great way to make extra income. I'm bringing in anywhere from $7,000 to $8,000 in premium just on a monthly basis, and I'm hoping to increase that, down the road. So you do get a 1 week for free with the Investors Club. You get, all the different worksheets, all the weekly planning stuff that I do. You also get any videos that are special purpose. Like I've done videos with my son. And I also share my favorites. And then every time I make a trade, I share it right then and there. And then I do have it's like 6 lessons for getting started. It's how I got started. So all that's available. What's not available and what comes at the Trader Club is Discord. So at this next level, you also get Discord. And then I also have, every other week, I have a group meeting where on Sunday night we all get together. I have 20 to 30 people usually that join. We'll talk about topics. Last week we talked about ZRDTE. We also talked about the loss of the petrodollar. And this one does not have a free trial. I talked to my membership and they agreed that let's not do a free membership. We had some people coming in and impersonating me, and that seems to have stopped since we turned off the free version. And then this coaching club is currently $25 a month. I am going to increase this probably to $35, and then maybe later in the month or next month, maybe $45, or I may go directly to $45 a month, primarily because it does include 2 coaching sessions. They're typically, or supposed to be 15 minutes, but they usually last to 30 minutes, and it's a little bit more hand-holding. And the reason I did this originally at $25 on a monthly basis, just so a lot of people would join, a lot of people would learn about my service, and I could help them. But now it's since I have so many people who have signed up for it, I do need to price it a bit higher. It's like I said, I originally was never going to keep it at this price, and since I consult and it just takes up a lot of time, and I don't want to steal from Peter to pay Paul, if you get my drift. I believe I priced this too low. I know my competitors Some people charge $500 for an hour. I believe some other people charge like 4 or 5 times this amount on a monthly basis. So I'm not going to increase it massively, but probably at some point it will be 45. So I don't know if I'm going to jump directly to 45. And I may also give people the opportunity to purchase these memberships on a yearly basis. That's something else I'm looking at. So just wanted to share that with you. So you get quite a bit. The Discord is growing. I have a lot of advanced traders who have joined, and they answer questions as well as I do. And so there's a lot of hand-holding in the Discord and a lot of really good discussion. So I encourage you, if you've not looked at this, might be worth your while. So that being said, let's jump into the next part of the video. Now, what I typically start with is the option chain. I like to set it up on Schwab where I'm looking at deltas. If you're using Fidelity or one of the other brokers, a lot of times you don't have to select a different drop down here. You can see I've selected Greeks. The Greeks will be part of the page itself. For Schwab, for this online portal, and this is one I worked with for many years, it's fairly easy to use the option chain. You pretty much identify how many strikes, what expiration. So in this case, I'm using July 9th. So I'm looking at a week out. I kind of wanted to show people what it looked like. So here's the option chain. And I like to use this range. So a lot of times I may go as high as 20 delta, but I typically don't. I usually will look at this 15 delta or go as low as an 11 delta. So for a vertical put credit spread, I might go to this middle band or group of values for, and that, that's more risky than the 11 delta, which is the one right above. And you can see you get paid a little bit more. So for a little bit more risk, I get paid 45 versus 32. But you can see for a week, a 15 delta is like right around 198. So at the close, it was 202. So it's fairly close to the money. So if I came over here and I wanted to do this to July 8th, I believe it was July 8th. Let's look back here. Yeah, July 8th. And the value was, let's look at the 198. So if we did the 198, so I wanted to sell a 198. And then typically I would then start with the 193. So I'd pick up $28. I would be sell to open one contract, IWM, expiring July 8th, which will be a week from Monday, with a 198 put. I would have here's the bid, mid, and the ask. So I would be picking up the bid. And then for protection, so that if the market dove, I'm protected below 193. So my max loss is the difference. So this spread $5 minus whatever premium I bring in. So right around $472. So I'd get $28, but one thing I could do, and what a lot of people do, is they'll do 10 contracts here. So they'd be making 280 in 1 week. But could this get into trouble? Well, it's at 198. So you see, well, it could very well get into trouble. So in my mind, it's still fairly risky. The farther you go out, so, if I decide, well, I want to give it another week, I can pick typically a lower price. So instead of picking 198, I could pick 197 or 196. So that's what I was going to show you. So let's go here. So we'll pick another one. This is July 15th. So you'll see here, and again, we'll go focus in a little bit. So a 15 delta for this is 195. So it's $1 less. 194 is a 13 delta. So again, I'm bringing in a little bit more cash and taking a little bit less risk. So instead of 198, I'm looking at 194. So if I come back here, let's go out to 715, or actually 719. So that was 719. So I believe, let's go back and make sure. Yeah, 719. So I'm going to pick a 15 delta because I'm doing a vertical put credit spread. So 72.75. So let's see, it's 195. So I'd pick 195 here, and I would probably go with 190 to see what it looks like. So $41 if I'm doing 10 contracts, it's bringing in 430. Now, typically what I've done in the past is I wouldn't do more than 2 contracts, and I would bring in only $86. So like I said, when a lot of people will trade, 0 DTEs or really close to expiration, they do many more contracts. So, one thing I could play around with is doing 5 contracts. I'm a little hesitant to go all the way as high as 10. But here, that's 215. That's pretty close to what I like to get for a trade. And this would be for 2 weeks. And you can see this becomes even more surprising. So we'll go out to the next one. That's July 26th. Let's skip that one. Let's look at August. So we could say, well, we'll go August 19th. That's 47 days. So here again, if we focus in, if I look at around a 15 delta, so we either have a 16 or 1480, so 190. So again, we can come over here. We can look at 190. So I'm going literally $5 cheaper. And I would say buy to open, I'd probably go to 185, and then I would change this to 816, 85, well, 90, 85, so 114 minus 71. So I would bring in 235. So that's not as good as I would have thought, but so I could go, I might want to look to see if there's, sometimes if you try the strikes around the one you're looking at, sometimes you can get a little bit better. So it's a little bit better, but not by a huge amount, 190, 185. Now, a lot of times I do the $10 spread. So this would bring in 365 at a $10 spread, but I would need $1,000 minus 70 for each contract. So what is that, 930 times 10, or if it's times 5, it's, what would it be, like 4,600, I think, something along those lines. But there again, I've been very, very successful for these trades, so maybe I should do something like 10 and bring in closer to 730. So again, something I'm looking at and trying to consider. So this has probably been one of my favorite trades, and a lot of times I will do that. I might even go out to the next month. I might look at 920, and I might go even lower. So I might go to 187, and then I might go to 177, actually 175. So I might go to 185, 175. So again, not bad, but this 185, what's the delta? 0.13. So I could probably, can I go to a 186? So here's 186. And let's go up to, yeah, it jumps to 180. So I could look at 180 potentially. And I've done that before too. So 51, it drops me to $51. So a lot of times I'm finding it may not make sense to go too far out. It may be the July expiration may be a better one, especially if I want to up these, because this does give it a lot more time to move around. Now, if I wanted to do it with an iron condor, and you can see here, you can select a strategy, you can select iron condor. So again, we could go back and we could look at doing it on 7-8 like originally we looked. And I believe I was selecting 198. And let's do 193, so maybe a $5 spread. And then so that's $5 below. Let's look at $5 above. So let's do 210 here. And then let's go out to 215. So 38 for an iron condor. Probably what I've done is buy to open. Yeah, I should have done, well, no, that's correct. So 5 cents and 18. So this is probably too low. Let's look and see what the delta is. So the delta is 0.08. So I should probably take a little bit more risk with this delta. So maybe I could do a 208 and a 213. Yeah, so that got me up to 57. You know, and this is for 1 week. So again, if I did 5, I'm bringing in 310 for a week-long trade. Now, if let's actually see what this looks like. The 198 is a 13 delta. So, and like I said, I prefer to go a little lower. So I may go a little lower here, 197, 192. So I'm still at 48. And if I do 5 contracts, I'm bringing in 260 in about a week. Now, if I did 2 weeks, or I went to 719 like I showed before, and then go a little lower, let's go 195, 190, and let's go 210 and 220 or 215. You can see that brings in $1.06, so $560 for, what is that, almost 3 weeks, I guess. So quite a bit, but let's see where does this stand. This is, so I'm looking at this value. So it's a little risky, a 22 delta for the short call, and for the short put, it would be a 15 delta. So yeah, the 15 delta is not bad. So let's go out a little bit farther for the 210. Let's do 213 and 218. And then let's see what the 213 is. So the delta is 13. So that's not bad. I could potentially go down a little bit more. So 213, 218, a 13 delta. If I came over here and looked, you know, 213 would be all the way up here. Could it get up there? It could. I think the highest it was 211. So it could get up to 213. So maybe we want to take a little bit less risk. And a lot of times I do like to take less risk on the call side. So let's go up to 215 and let's do 220. And that's 59. So you're almost $300 again for 3 weeks. I believe it's, what is it, 19 DTE? I don't know if that's the one I have over here. That's August 19th. I think the previous one was, it's 19 days. You know, so it would have a pretty good return just with the fact that it's 19 days. So it could bring in 315. Now, what's really interesting is if we go and we look at the 816 for an iron condor, then it gets even more interesting. So if we go, let's go to 190 and 185, and let's move up to 220, and then 225. Yeah, 73. So we'd be bringing in 420, but let's see, where does this one stand? 12 delta. So that's okay. That's like what I typically like to do. Now for this one, what is the delta? It's a 14 delta, so I might want to go a little lower. Let's look at 188. That's like a 12 delta. So that's something I would look at. Now, I might decide to go have a wider spread on the put side than the call side. So here I might say, instead of 188, let's try 178. So I pick up a little bit more cash here. I'm taking a little bit less risk on the call side. And I feel like the call side is just a little bit more risky just by the nature of it. Because if you don't own the shares, you know, then, you know, you're going to have to buy them and then hand them off to someone. It just makes it a little bit more complex. So I prefer to take less risk. And I don't plan to have them assigned. I plan to close this if it ever did get into trouble or roll it out of trouble. Here we can also look at market, so 450. Now, one thing I would say, if I really like this trade, I might see, well, can I shrink this spread? So instead of 178, I might look at what does 179 look like? So it went up 3 cents. That may be worth it to have a thinner spread. So I might do it again. I might look at 180. And again, this is the put that I'm purchasing. This is the protection. So when you're doing these and you're doing, more than one contract and you're taking a bit more risk, it's well worth it. So I'm not really seeing much here. So it's right now 83. I think it was 90 something. So let's try 181. Yeah, so that one only dropped $1. So I typically prefer to still pick up the extra cash. So I'm going to go back to 178. And again, it's 90. If I'm doing 5 of these, I'm picking up 450. In the past, I only did 2. Oops. So I'd bring in 180. That's pretty comparable to a lot of my iron condors. I typically try to get more than 200, but that's where I'm talking about in the sense of, well, maybe I should do 5, or potentially go up to 10. So here we have 5. Some people would go up to 10. Let's see what 10 looks like. It's pretty straightforward. I could have just multiplied it by 10. But it would be a $900 trade, and I could potentially do this every month and start with a basis of 900, or do the July trade. Go back to, I wonder what with these same numbers, what it would look like if I went back to July and do it literally every month. So with these same numbers, which are really, really safe, I'd still bring in pretty close to $170. And again, wrong place. Let's go over here. 220. So you're talking, it would have to go all the way up here, or it would have to come down around here. So it has a lot of room to maneuver. And you have plenty of time to actually manage it. So I know I got a little bit wordy, but I thought it was interesting for people to see, how you put together the trade. At this point, I would review the orders. I would click on that. I'd make sure everything looks correctly, that I'm bringing in a credit, not a debit. And, before I actually commit the trade, I would double check it. So, and that's what that looks like. And same thing here. I would review it and then, click the review the order, then review everything and make sure everything looks okay. So this is what I wanted to share with you guys. So again, my thought process is I'm going to start taking more risks with this trade in particular. And is it really more risk with the fact that I've done 20, 30 of these, 20, 25, maybe as many as 30. And so far, they've all been very successful and profitable. So hopefully you'll leave a message and, let me know what you think. So again, thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.